It was part of a major flyover,
Yeah,
the whole wetlands there for the migratory birds.
yeah.
hmm Yeah.
So when you remember it, did the lake come all the way up to Lake Pullman?
Uh, I would say that it came closer to Pullman. How close I couldn't say, but on the east side of Doty, it looks like pretty much a landfill in there, so it might have been lake at that time. Closer up to Pullman.
I think the story goes, when Pullman first bought that big tract of land, thousands of acres, that the lake did go across, and then he used a lot of the lake, the clay from the lake. They had their own brick company, but at the same time, when they were excavating, they were filling in the lake and dumping in the lake. So he's building homes here, and they all had basements. So everywhere they were digging, they had to go somewhere with all that excavation material. So I think they just started filling in the lake. Because
Now that you mentioned, I'm surprised they could dig basements that close to the lake without getting the seepage into it.
well, I think it started rising up, and like up to Michigan Avenue, which is up on a big ridge there.
Part of, yeah.
So it started rising up
You're
as
right,
as you come out of there. And the other interesting fact is that there was a lot of ice companies over there too. And,
Oh, yeah.
And they would make the ice before there were refrigerators. Like you have a refrigerator over there now, you plug it in and you got a freezer going. But back then, the ice companies.
Yeah, I remember that very well because I was there a couple of times with my father. He was a fireman, a city fireman, and he was stationed at that station at 113th near State Street in Roseland.
Yeah.
But he got word of the ice operations and days off, and he took me down there a couple of times in winter to watch them.
Yeah.
He was going down there trying to get a job on his day off.
Oh.
It was about somewhere 119th or something
Right.
down there.
Right.
And at that point there was a big ice house.
Right.
And the lake was frozen over solid.
Really?
And they had, and a foot deep, I think. And they had cut a trail from the ice house out into the lake. And along different, and then fanned out a little, and they were sawing and cutting ice, and then PVing it in to this channel to where it could go up a conveyor.
Yeah.
And my dad they had guys along the way all over cutting ice or moving along the channel.
Mm-hmm.
My dad wanted to get some extra bucks working on that.
Yeah.
I forget whether he got any, but I remember being pretty fascinated watching that go.
Yeah.
And they told me that they could pile that much ice in there and put some straw or something around the outside only, and it would last well into summer
Yeah.
for the refrigerator cars.
Boy, oh boy.
And that used to amaze me that the ice could last that long. But I guess all together, when they're jammed together, the inner guys can't. Only the outer ones could melt a little, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
So it was for the Pullman cars.
It was no, it was for freight, and it might have had something to do with the freighting for that Hammond company that started the meat
Oh.
butchering about that time, and was shipping meat to New York or out east. So,
Yeah.
I'm guessing, but definitely was before refrigerator.
Yeah. Because they said there was a nice ice house over at Wolf Lake too. Ice operations.
Yeah, it should be. That would be ideal too.
Yeah.
It was a handy leak.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, they had the pretty good winters too, so they had foot deep ice.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
when in those winters, when January comes, you say goodbye to temperatures above 30 degrees
Yeah.
until middle of February.
Do you remember the area like Indian Marsh, Indian Ridge Marsh, and all that big marsh? Do you remember what it was like when you were young?
Big Marsh, I presume, didn't look anything like when I was there recently. It was in that area that the guy with the cow
Oh.
had his spread in this vast sea of tall reeds.
Hmm.
Now, what it looks like now in that area is so much changed because of all the steel mill dumping
All right.
and the garbage dumping.
Yeah.
None of it looks like it was when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
The southern end of it may have been a little different, a little more mixed area, because a couple of my schoolmates at Pullman Tech in the 1930s lived down there in a little community called Parsons, down there where Allkill Gardens is. And one of his pastimes, or their pastimes, they used to tell me and sort of rub it in on me, make me tell us, in their spare time they ran trap lines in the wetlands for mostly for what are those most common little animals?
Muskrat.
Muskrat, yeah, mostly, but an occasional mink.
Mm-hmm.
And they would skin them and get money from the pelts through some mail-in operation.
Yeah.
You can imagine the city boy from you guys are really in paradise.
But muskrats were very, very plentiful, we understand,
Yeah,
and big trapping operations out there.
yeah.
Maybe beavers too, I don't know, there could have been beavers, but muskrats, mink.
That's a good point, though. I wonder about beavers if there was no trees.
Yeah.
Could they live on just reeds? I doubt it.
Well, they gotta cut down the trees so they make like their trapping where they're able to catch fish and stuff like that, right?
I'm not sure.
But I don't know what kind of trees they had back then, if there were trees around or what, or if it was all just wetlands.
Yeah, I know. Far it all went. I don't know either.
But then there's the legendary Muskrat Pete that people talk about.
Yeah,
and he
I
had an
heard of him,
operation.
and I have only a very vague idea of where his spread
Yeah,
or cabin was,
yeah.
or what happened to him, or whatever.
And then I haven't seen too much evidence of it, but I hear tell that there were a couple of like lodges out there, inns you might call them, or where hunters would come and they buy their supplies and stuff like that, and have a drink. They had a couple of inns like that where they had a bar, and
I imagine they would have. I've heard of that further east, where it extends to where the big wetlands were for years, that along the Kankakee River or someplace.
oh, down there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Similar thing to that.
yeah.
That was a big hunter's paradise,
Oh, yeah.
where there were lodges for the gentry even.
Yeah. Huh.
So where maybe the politicians
Yeah.
entertained their friends.
So did you grow up there in Fernwood?
Mostly, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Most of the time we grew up there. I was born in Roseland, about a block from the firehouse in Roseland.
Wow.
I think it was at home birthing too, but it may be in the Roseland Pullman Hospital down near the Greenstone Church.
Oh, yeah.
One of my family was delivered there.
Uh-huh.
But we moved to Fernwood when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and then from there, by a freak action of my mother, I think she saw me making some pretty good toy model houses. She thought I had good technical ability. And she leveraged at Pullman School to get me in there.